Karen Hutton, the
Oh my
world
God.
famous Karen Hutton.
The world famous Rick Sammon.
Welcome to Cronon Hudson, New York.
Thank you.
Canon Explorer of Light and award-winning photographer Rick Sammon loves his day job. The man never gets tired. He's endlessly prolific. He's utterly inspirational both as a photographer and a teacher. He's been called the Godfather of Photography and is on a mission to make digital photography fun, creative, exciting, and rewarding for others, and exceeds his own bar with his blog, his how-to videos, iPhone and iPad apps, a podcast, and an expanding following on social media. Although he's known for landscape, cultural, travel, and nature photography now, Rick started his professional photography career as an underwater photographer, producing 6 underwater books and leading scuba diving expeditions to the 7 seas. Cut to now, Rick's images from travels to more than 100 countries have been published in his 36 books and 11 apps. And still, Rick describes himself as evolving. In his words, he's an A to Z type of photographer who enjoys the freedom of not specializing. It's sure worked for him. With nearly 40 years of experience, Rick still says, when you're through changing, you are through. For this guy, it seems like it's always just beginning. And did I mention he's also an incredible musician? He schooled at the famed Berklee School of Music in his earlier days. And like so many musicians I know, photography and music go hand in hand for telling a wonderful story about life. I welcome you to the light and joyful world of Rick Sammon.
Hey everybody, it's Karen Hutton and The Chat with Karen Hutton. Sound bite-sized insights from some of the coolest people on the planet talking about living your life as an artist, or better yet, living your life as if it were your art. And one of the main people that I know that does this so brilliantly is Rick Sammon. Well, he starts laughing.
Well, I'm just so happy to be here. You know,
exactly.
You're in my backyard.
You're
in Croton Hudson, New York. What could be more fun than hanging out with Karen Hutton on a rainy day here?
Oh my God! And it is raining, and the birds are chirping, and the garden is flowering. It's incredible. I'm moving in. Did you know that?
Yes, we have the guest room all set up.
That's awesome because I pretty much live here now. Just thought you should know. So, Rick. Yeah. You have been doing this photography gig for a really long time.
Well, that's why
Not implying that you're old, mind you, because frankly, never mind.
Well, that's why I have all these gray hairs. But I have been doing it for a long time, and I think photography, I'm sure a lot of your viewers know this, photography keeps you young. You know, one of the Buddhist, you know, I hope we can get to the Buddhist temple later.
Yeah.
You know, one of the Buddhist saying is, learning is health.
Yes.
And I think as we continue to learn, that helps us grow, and that keeps us young, and that keeps us healthy.
Absolutely.
So I think that keeps me really going and motivated.
Yeah, and you have, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. One of the really exciting things is you're a musician also. Yep. And we're going to actually get to hear you play a little bit in the course of this chat, which I'm really excited about, because my husband's a bass player.
That's right.
As well as an IT guy, and so that's really exciting. So, okay. How long have you been doing photography now? Like 30, 150,000?
I think it's longer than Trey Ratcliffe, right?
Yes, you have.
And I did it as a kid, but you know, watching the evolution of photography, you know, it hasn't really changed. I recommend, if you want to get good at photography, buy Ansel Adams' book, The Print.
Yes.
This is an amazing book because, you know, the technology has changed, but we were talking about, you know, what you're doing with the Arcanum. That, you know, you're not telling people how to use sliders, you're talking about envisioning the end result, and that's what he talked about. Like when we were setting up here, we were envisioning the end result. We moved some tables around, the umbrella in the background.
We made the picture.
We made the picture. We have a light here. So that's really what photography is all about, and that's why it's so very exciting to make that picture, as you said, Karen, rather than just taking that picture.
Exactly, because it's like an expression of what you have on the inside. So what do you think, you who have all this experience, what piece of advice would you have for people who are, you know, coming up in the ranks? You know, nowadays it's all digital, it's all online, it's all out there.
Right. Well, advice as far as growing as a photographer?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say follow your heart. Because, you know, people say, what makes a good picture? Every time someone asks me what makes a good picture, I ask them, do you like rap music? And the answer is usually no. I said that doesn't make rap music bad. It's just that you don't like it. So it's all subjective. So if we follow our heart and we don't try to, you know, it's nice to have heroes. Like in music, you mentioned that I play music. You know, I love Clapton, I love Santana, I try to emulate them. But, you know, we have to follow our heart and create our own style so we can learn from those people. But follow your heart, and, you know, if someone criticizes your work, you know, take it with a grain of salt. You know, if someone criticizes, when we go inside, you'll see a picture. I have a poster of Pablo Picasso's The Three Musicians.
Oh, really?
Right.
I didn't see
So
that.
it's all the, you know, if he listened to the critics, you know,
He would never have
he'd
done
never
that.
done it. So follow your heart and never give up.
That never give up is a huge one, and it's tricky because in social media, which, you know, we're all involved in, you put your heart out there and somebody comes along and goes, that sucks, or, you know, whatever, all the other things they might say about it, your little heart just goes, ew. But you have to. It has to be bigger than all that.
Yeah, you have to follow your heart, and you have to follow your vision.
Yeah.
And you have to think about what might make someone else happy.
Yeah.
May not make you happy. You know, a lot of people go through life, maybe getting off the photography subject here,
perfect.
but they try to be someone else.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to be like him.
Right.
Well, you know, first of all, you see that person on center stage, you don't know what's going on behind the stage, right?
Right.
And, you know, that may not make you happy. So be happy with yourself.
Exactly. And it's this, what you just said a minute ago about doing something for someone else. That's another thing that I don't necessarily see a lot of in this whole digital world, is in terms of art, that it is really about bringing something to someone else that can maybe light a fire for them in their life. Well, okay, so speaking of lighting a fire and getting your work out there, you have something to show us.
Well, first of all, I used to play the organ solo for Light My Fire
Did you really?
in 1968. I don't think I can still play it, but I used to be able to play it. But you know, we're talking about getting your work out there and never giving up.
Right.
Your work does you absolutely no good hanging out on your hard drive, your backup hard drive, hidden in the cloud. I say get your work out there. Some people, they say, oh, you put your pictures on the web without the copyright. Aren't you afraid someone's going to steal them? Well, I have a lot of books, and people could, you know, make a copy of the picture of, like, the cover of this book, and use Photoshop to take out, you know, all the pics, all the, you know, the little artifacts and the dots. So I'm not worried about that. So get your work out there. So here's my best get your work out there story. So Susan, my wife, who just helped us set this up, there was going to be an exhibit at a local Unitarian church here in the musty basement of pictures of local photographers. So she asked me to be in it because she liked this picture and she liked this picture.
Hold it up a little bit longer so they can really see it.
So she liked this picture and she liked this picture, which I actually took in the backyard here. You know, your backyard, by the way, is a great place to take pictures.
Well, when you have a backyard like this, it kind of helps.
So she asked me to be on. I said, I'm working on these international projects. I'm working on books. I'm working on Kelby training stuff. This is before the Arcana. I'm working on all these different things. I don't have time. So she used the magic word, please, right?
I was like, what's the magic word?
So I was in there. So I put the pictures. I make archival prints because, you know, if you're going to put pictures out there, you have to have archival prints, archival mats, frames, everything.
Everything.
So it was a commitment. So I put the two pictures in. So after the show, a review comes out in the local paper, you know, that has the crime blotter in it, the local sports, 75 cents, you know.
Yeah.
So a person writes something nice about the pictures. So I figured she wrote such a nice thing, I'll bring the pictures over to her. So I bring the pictures over to her. She says, thank you, we're having tea, not Croton cocktails. If you come to Croton, by the way, this is actually water from the Croton Dam, which we're going to shoot at later.
Croton cocktail.
Make sure you see Karen's pictures. She was in New York City this past week. Amazing pictures from Chinatown, Rockefeller Center, with the flags moving. Very creative artist, by the way, here.
Thank you.
So anyway, we're talking about the flattering, right?
I know, really. It's like, what?
Well, you are.
Okay.
So anyway, this is what she said in the local paper about this picture and this picture. And this is before my butterfly book came out, which I spent a year on. So here's what she said.
Okay.
For their incisive vision, sumptuous textures and colors, And the sheer wonder these finely detailed descriptions of butterflies awaken in us, I think Rick Sammon's photographs are marvels. It's pretty nice, right?
That's lovely.
So this is at the exhibit in the local Unitarian church in the musty basement. Well, this is who she is. Maria Morris Hamburg curated the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York City.
Oh my God.
Do you know what that did for the sale of the book?
Oh my God.
So this is why, I'm giving you one example, why it's so important to get your work out there. You know, I go on websites, oh, you can't enter it on the penalty of a $250,000 fine.
Right.
I know our friend Trey Ratcliffe, you know, puts his work out there without big copyrights over the center, right?
He doesn't do that.
No, I'm saying he doesn't do it.
Right,
That's good.
Exactly.
So that's why, get your work out there. My mother gave me a lot of good advice. I'm sure yours did.
Yes.
You never know who's watching.
That's so
Listen,
true.
I never knew Maria Morris Hamburg would be watching. When you put your pictures on the web, right?
You're right.
That first impression is important.
Right.
You never know who's watching. You never know who can help you. It's very, very important.
And I think the book also having a project is really good.
Well, yeah, I think that's FedEx. Having a project is good. This is all I did for 1 year.
Yeah, and it gives you a focus. That's another little piece of gem of advice that actually Art Wolf, in the chat that I did with him, said. Having a project is really key. Having a focus and something to get up for every day and fulfill.
And you could go on the web. There's just type in on Google photo challenges. I actually have a photo challenge site on Google+.
You do?
Yep, it says photo challenge. And actually this got the most hits out of everything I do. HDR, Photoshop, Lightroom, people photography. People love challenges. So if you give yourself a challenge, then you'll feel good about, you know, you have something to work for rather than just, and I think setting goals, Karen, is important. Like people come on my workshops and they say, like if we're doing something in Death Valley, oh, I want to get great pictures of in Death Valley. It's an okay goal, but if you fine tune that goal, I want to get great black and white pictures with really strong shadows, that's a much finer goal. And rather than using the shotgun approach, I'm getting the sun, I'm getting the sand, I'm getting this, I'm getting all this. Use that bow and arrow approach.
Right.
And I think when you target your goal, you'll have a higher percentage of pictures that you actually like.
So true and so wise, and exactly what I expected from you, Rick Sammon. He laughs, but he's very wise and he knows a lot. And he's like throwing out quotes as we're walking around setting up all the time about, you know, I believe in this and I believe in that. And so you should follow Rick Sammon if you don't already. He is a wealth of information and inspiration, which is why I came to Croton-on-Hudson today in the rain to sit in the garden and talk to him. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And now we're going to have some of the best sushi you've ever had.
We're going to go have sushi. But we are also going to go play a little music before we do. But I'm going to sign off here because I'm going to put the music after, so don't hang up, as they say. I like saying that, don't hang up, even though you're viewing. It's kind of weird. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you come back again for our next big batch of inspiration, and thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
You're the best.
You are awesome.
She's the best.
He's the best. Bye. That's fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, so my guitar is in tune. I learned a lot of things in music that apply to photography. My friend Scott Kelby, he's a great musician. On Karen's show, Karen, on your show, he said, I used to be a musician. He's still a great musician. You know, I tell people it's never too late to be who you could have been. That's just an aside. But anyway, I learned a lot of things in music that apply to photography. If your guitar is not in tune, you're not going to sound good. In photography, if your camera is not calibrated, you have to calibrate your camera for accurate color. I use the Passport color checker. If your monitor's not calibrated, I use the Color Monkey Photo. If your printer's not calibrated, I use the Color Monkey Photo for that too. If all this stuff isn't calibrated, your creative vision is not going to shine through. So my advice is, tune up. was for Scott Kelby.
That's awesome. That's for you, Scott.
Aaron, I'm having so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on the show. You know, it is a photography show, right? But I think what you get out of the people you interview is you try to get them to be inspiring. You know, Scott Kelby was inspiring, R.C. was inspiring, Art Wolf is very inspiring. So I have my bass guitar here. My brother gave me this bass guitar. And I learned a lot of things in music that relate to photography, and actually vice versa. In photography, you know, we see the world in 3D. Our cameras see in 2D. So what we have to do is think about separation when we're composing our pictures. Thinking about separation is very, very important. You want to separate the subject from the background. And we could do that in a lot of different ways. We can make the background out of focus. We can make the background darker than the subject. We can make the background lighter than the subject. We could do a combination of all these things. So separation in photography is very important. When you're looking through that viewfinder, composing your pictures, look for separation. You want that subject to stand out. Well, in music, separation is important too. You know, if I just play notes like all quarter notes, it's going to sound boring, right? Well, that wasn't that boring, but it could be better. So if we separate some of the notes, if we look for that separation, it sounds a little more interesting. So in music, the thing is, it's not what notes you play, it's that space between the notes that makes it interesting. So I'll give you an example. Now, I know your husband's a bass player, so maybe I could get to jam with him, but I know I could learn something. I'm just an amateur bass player. But it is that space between the notes that's so very, very important. And in your photography, it's that space, that separation, that can basically turn a snapshot into a great shot. Separation. You know, a lot of my friends, photographer friends, are musicians. And you know, we say a lot of things that you learn in photography apply to music and vice versa. It's really true. Ansel Adams, by the way, was a concert pianist. Scott Kelby is a great pianist, and he's a very, very good photographer. He took a great picture of me, by the way, in this series that he's working on called Sessions. For me, taking the picture is just basically 50% of the deal. I spend a lot of time in Photoshop, in Lightroom, with plugins, you know, enhancing that picture. Now, a wedding photographer is not going to do that. A wedding photographer is going to go out and shoot, you know, like maybe 300-400 pictures. It doesn't have time to do that. But as an artist, I feel that Photoshop, Lightroom, all the plugins can really help us awaken the artist within. So it's the same thing with music. If you don't use any, you know, accessories, like I have this really cool, like, digital enhancer down here, I could just play a regular chord. It sounds okay, right? But I have about 500 different sounds in here that can turn a pretty boring sound like that. It's just a straight sound into a much cooler sound like this. That's one of about 500 different sounds. So this makes me sound better. So working, I think, so working in Photoshop, working in Lightroom, and working with the plugins can make your pictures look better. So again, awaken the artist within after the fact. Get, for sure, the very, very best in-camera exposure, but then just think about, again, envision the end result. Think about all the different creative possibilities that await you in the digital darkroom. I'll catch you later. People ask me all the time, hey Rick, what's your f-stop? I always say, you know, my f-stop is my f-stop, my shutter speed is my shutter speed. It doesn't really matter. What matters is your creative vision. And it's the same thing in music. It doesn't matter what notes you play, it's how you play those notes. So let me give you an example. I could play this like funky thing, not very funky, like... But if I put some feeling into it, and that's what you have to do with photography. You have to feel the photograph. You know, Keith Richards said, feel the music. I say, feel the photograph. Put some emotion into that photograph. So let me give an example going from boring to playing the same thing with some feeling. Scott Kelby, I want to play with you sometime. Seriously, it doesn't matter what notes you play, it's how you play them. Same thing with photography. It's how you use those f-stops, those shutter speeds to convey your creative vision. I'll catch you later.